Folks, thanks for joining me for this week's Stillwater tutorial. What you see in the vise is a fly that I call the Plook. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak H270 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's on a medium wire and it's in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Semperfi. It's a Nano silk and it's at 12/0 in black. Now the first thing I'm going to do, as always with the Nano silks, is just get a little bit of super glue onto the shank of the hook. And this just helps with adhering the silk to the shank. Wax doesn't cut it, super glue's your friend. So I'm going to get a few turns of silk on, take it approximately up to where a barb would be, and then I can come in with my scissors and remove my waste. Now folks, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate you clicking that button. It means a lot to me, it helps the channel grow, and it costs absolutely nothing. So if you don't mind, I would really appreciate it. The tail that I'm going to be using for this fly is Partridge. It's a very simple fly actually, it doesn't use very many materials but very effective. So I've got my partridge feather here, and as you can see, the bit I want is up the top end. So I'm going to get rid of all that fluff from the stem, which leaves me this feather to work with. You can see I've still got a couple of bits at the bottom there. And what I want to take is a good half dozen, maybe more, fibres. Doesn't need to be loads. And then I've got my tail, and I want it to be approximately the length of the shank, which is about all the fibres I've got there. So I'm going to lay that on and catch that in. You're only getting a tiny bit at the bottom here, and then I'm going to bring my thread back to where the barb would be. That's looking okay. So for the rib then, I'm going to be using some lure flash. This is dual tinsel. You can see the lure flash labels on it. And what does dual tinsel mean, I hear you ask? Well, one side is silver and the other side is gold. And what I want here is the gold side to be on the body of the fly. So I'm going to tie the gold down onto the shank, like so. And I'll just catch that in. And job's a good one. Okay, for the body I'm using some Troutstalkers boosted natural dubbing. You can see here it's handwritten, so you might not be able to make it out, but it does say boosted natural. It's probably, if I had to get rid of all my dubbing, and I've got a considerable collection, I think this would be the only one I would fight over to keep. The rest, well, I wouldn't want to lose any of them, to be perfectly honest, but you know, if your feet were to the fire and you had to just pick one dubbing, this would be it for me. It just it does so many different flies for both still water and river. So I've got my dubbing on. I've not dubbed it down particularly hard. I like it, I want it to be fairly scruffy, and then I can come up the fly, and using the dubbing I can create a little bit of a taper. Now as I come up, I don't want to get too near the front of the fly. As you've seen from the original pattern, it's got a rather large yellow bulbous head. Now I could have just called it the large yellow headed fly, but that sounded a bit boring, so I've called it the Plook, after my old friend Acne, which I used to suffer from as an adolescent. Luckily I'm too old for that now. So the rib, I've got it here, but before I bring it up the body, I'm going to add a little bit of dubbing to my bodkin needle here, and I'm just going to add that to the rib. And what this does is, once you've had a few fish with this, if you don't do this stage, you'll find very quickly that your rib will just come away, and then once it's not right, it'll either hang back and not be competition legal, or it'll just not be as effective at catching fish, and you don't want that. So I'm looking for 3 turns, and I've got that no problem. And then on the 4th turn I can come over to meet my rib, a few turns to hold it into place, a couple of turns in front, and then I can simply remove that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Next then, I'm going to add some jungle cockeyes, and as you can see from this cape, I've used all the good feathers near the bottom, and I've got to rely on some bigger feathers. So I've taken this one and just put a little split in it so that I can split it over the top of the body. So let me see if I can show you that on camera. So you might not be able to see, but I have put a little scissors clip in the middle of the eye. I've removed the guard hairs, and next I want to just encourage that split to open out, and I'm going to put 2 loose turns in. Looks okay my side, and it looks okay your side. Well, that's a first. Doesn't often go that well. And then again, clamp down on that, make sure it goes nowhere, lift up the stalk and remove my waist. Okay, so far so good. Now you may be thinking at this point that the head looks very big, but as I said, I want to have a nice big yellow head there. So next I'm going to add in my hackle, and again I'm simply using a partridge feather. You can see I've got one here prepared. I've removed all the fluff from the bottom, and if I can find my hackle pliers, what I want to do is just catch the tip. Once I've caught the tip, I can slick all that back, and if you wet your thumb and forefinger while you're doing this, it just makes it a little bit easier, and what you end up with is a feather that looks like that. Now as you can see, there's a natural bend in the feather, and I want to tie it down so the bend is towards me, and then I can grab that little bit of stalk in. 2 or 3 turns should do it. Bring the stalk up out the way, and then at this point you can trim that stalk away. By catching them 2 or 3 turns in front of the stalk, it just ensures it's not going anywhere. Okay, now you can use the little handle you've created, but I still always like to bring in my hackle pliers. I think it gives you much more control, and then I can bring my partridge hackle round. Now it's very delicate, you've got to really take your time with partridge. It's pretty unforgiving. If you're too heavy handed, it'll just snap on you. So I'm just using my fingers to tease out the fibres from when I wet it, and then I'm going to bring that round, and on this occasion I'm going to need all the fibres. Sometimes, depending on the feather, you might just need 2 turns, but I think I definitely needed all the fibres that I had available to me there. So I've caught them all in. I can then remove my hackle pliers. I'm going to wet the thumb and forefinger on my left hand, and I'm going to pull everything back out the way, and then I can concentrate on starting to develop an area for my head. Grab the stalk, pull that away. Now it's because I've damped down with my fingers the wing, it's looking a little slick, and when it's wet obviously it will have this buggy, slick looking appearance, but once it's dried it looks much better. I'm going to just come in and cast off my Nano silk, and then I can remove that. Now I'm using yellow, hence the name Plook, but orange works particularly well, red's really good. It's just up to you. The yellow I've just done because it's a little different, but generally I've got boxes with orange red heads on these, and they work really well. So the yellow then, it's simply Glo-Brite yellow. I can't remember the number, I think it's number 12, but I'm sure some fly tying geek will tell me I'm wrong, but it's yellow anyway. And I'm going to catch that in just behind the eye and start to build my head. Now normally I would like a nice little neat head like I've got there, so I'm keeping my floss under tension, just going to pull that away, and I could finish it and you've got a nice little neat head, but I don't want a neat head. I want a big bulbous head, which I'm using as an attractor really. So let's build that up. Don't be afraid to come back a few turns. You want that head to really stand out on this fly. So once you're happy that you've got a big head, you can come with your whip finish tool and make a hash of it like I am. Oh man, it's very early in the morning. So a few turns on your whip finish tool to finish the fly. Now I'd be very brave to try and just pull this away, and I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to come with my scissors and take that away. Now the last stage then, fairly simple. Depending on what kind of tire you are, you'll either have varnish or super glue. I like to use the old Solaris UV bone dry to finish off my flies, and I'm just going to catch that all around the fly. Doesn't take much actually, and it's just to seal the head. It does damp down the colour a little bit, I find, but it's not going to make a big difference to the fly. Give it a zap with the UV light. And the job's a good one. What you've got's a very effective wet. Now fishing wise, I would fish this in a team of hare's ears or crunchers, dialbacks, just a general nymph, and you know, hare's ear and gold. It's a proven killer, and I've used this pattern actually, different colour head granted, but it's very effective. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got something out of it. Thanks for watching. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, please click that button. I'd really appreciate your support, and I'll see you all next time.